Sustainable Herbs Program Toolkit webinar series. As you're joining, it would be great if you could introduce yourself in the chat. You can say where you're from and what your work is. If you're in the botanical or dietary supplement industry, the line of what aspect of that network you're in. And also in the last 10 minutes or so, we'll set aside some time for questions. And if you have a question, please enter that in the Q&A, not in the chat. And also when you introduce yourself in the chat, make sure to click for everyone and not just the speaker so that all the participants can see. So again, welcome as people are joining. It's a great honor today to be joined with Union for Ethical BioTrade in co-sponsoring this webinar, Herbal Tea Sourcing with Respect. You can click the next slide. As I said before, this is part of a webinar series that American Botanical Council and the Sustainable Herbs Program are co-hosting. In the ethnobotany webinar series, next on March 4th, I'll be speaking on rapid changes in Himalayan ethnobotany. I'll be speaking with Jan Salek, who's been working on this for years, and Robbie Hart. And if you want to prepare for that webinar, there's an article 2 years ago on Herbalgram on the research they've been doing. And then in April, I'll be speaking with Kelly Bannister on ethics and indigenous practices. So next slide. And then in the Sustainable Herbs Program Toolkit webinar series, I'm also excited for the next 2 webinars scheduled for these. And these are really diving in more to regenerative practices. The first will be with 3 farm managers on corporate farms, someone from Trout Lake and Standard Process and Aboca in Italy. And then in April, I'll be speaking with family-owned and smaller farms. Again, looking at how these farms are integrating regenerative practices, building healthy soils around growing botanicals. And I hope you'll join us for those, and you can find all the sign-up information for both of those on the Sustainable Herbs Program website. Next slide. And all of these webinars are made available for free through the generous support of the Sustainable Herbs Program donors and underwriters. And as you can see, there's a vast array and of diverse number of organizations here. You can find this information also on our website. Next slide. And these webinars are also made available for free through the membership of American Botanical Council's members. American Botanical Council has a wealth of information on reliable use of herbal medicine, adulteration, a lot of really important issues in the botanical and dietary supplement industry. And you can find out more information at the American Botanical Council website, herbalgram.org. And so with that, I want to introduce our panelists for today. You can stop the screen share. Yeah, thanks. There are 3 panelists. And again, my goal in these webinars is really to bring a diverse group of speakers and participants to the conversation of responsible sourcing and how to implement best practices. And so that's why I'm honored today to be co-hosting with Union for Ethical BioTrade. And the first speaker will be Rik, who's the executive director and the founder of UEBT. And then following Rik, Diana Bartolic will be just each of the speakers will present a little bit about their organization or company, and then we'll have a conversation. So Diana is a director for quality, purchase, and general affairs for the Spider Group. And the Spider Group is a producer company in Croatia that provides a variety of botanicals, including UEBT certified botanicals for the global market. And then our third speaker is Gocha, and he is a chief operating officer for GeoFlower. And GeoFlower is a producing company in Georgia, and they provide FairWild certified botanicals, including licorice, and UEBT certified products, also to the global market. So welcome everyone. And again, if you're just joining, please introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know where you're from. And thank you, Rik. I'll turn it over to you. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Anne, and welcome everybody. It's a great opportunity to speak to you all. So my name is Rik Kutsch Lojenga, Executive Director, Union for Ethical BioTrade. And I've been in this position since 2007. And in 2007, I was actually back then working at the United Nations, and we were trying to promote the use of biodiversity as a way to generate income for local communities that are in remote places in different parts of the world, but that were kind of the custodians of their natural resources and of biodiversity. And I've been working with governments and government agencies, but we realized we needed to get much more private sector buy-in. And that is when we created a Union for Ethical BioTrade. Next slide, please. And the UEBT is basically a membership organization. It's a non-profit organization. We're a small organization with representatives in 5 countries. But our members are working in different parts of the world. They're sourcing in more than 70 different countries. And one of the things that we do is that we certify ingredients from biodiversity, natural raw materials. We certify those, and for that we have a standard. And as such, we are a member of ISEAL, which is kind of an umbrella organization for standard setters, which includes organizations such as UTZ or Rainforest Alliance, FSC, Fairtrade, and other organizations. But certification is not kind of our main goal. It's one of the tools in the toolbox, and it's really about improving supply chain practices, and that is what a lot of our members are working on. It's improving practices for both people, with respect for both people and biodiversity in their supply chains. The next slide. So just very briefly, our standard, the UEBT standard, has kind of 2 main areas. One is the respect for biodiversity. That includes conservation, regeneration of biodiversity. And the second is the sustainable use of biodiversity. And then the whole area, the other pillar, is respect for people. So that is human rights, worker rights, labor conditions, clarity about land tenure, compliance with legislations, the CITES, for example. So that is what is in the standard. And the focus of our work is really the specialty ingredients that you are all working with, all these different botanical materials that come from all over the world and that really represent the wealth and the richness of biodiversity that this planet holds. So we are not, as an organization, focusing on the big commodities, but on all the specialty ingredients. Next slide. So one of the programs that we have is the UEBT Rainforest Alliance Herbs and Spices program. It was announced just last month in January. We've been working on it for a while. And it builds on the program that we already had in place with UTZ, a label that is well known here in the European markets. But the new program, after UTZ and Rainforest Alliance came together, we decided to continue the program, and there's a new program for herbs and spices, which includes herbal and fruit infusions, so including rooibos, so everything herbal tea, but it also includes other herbs and spices, including, for example, vanilla. So the way this works is that we, as UEBT, certify against the UEBT standard the producers, the producing companies. There's a number of RA requirements that are added to that. And with that, the Rainforest Alliance certification seal can be used by the brands, following, of course, all of the RA rules on branding and traceability. So it's a unique partnership. We're very excited about it, that we are launching this, and the first audits against this new program will happen from mid of 2021 onwards. And until that time, and for the next couple of years, we will still have the rainforest lions and the UTZ seal, but eventually the UTZ seal will phase out, and it is the rainforest lion seal that will be used. Next slide, please. One of the other things that we've been working on over the last years is just trying to understand kind of the consumer awareness on issues around biodiversity. And we've done that through what we call a Biodiversity Barometer. We've run that over the last 10 years, interviewed more than 75,000 consumers. We didn't do that ourselves. It was Ipsos, a market research agency, that did that for us. But what is interesting is that over the last 10 years, the awareness on biodiversity has very significantly increased. And right now, it's about 78% of the respondents in countries like the USA, but also here in Europe and Brazil, say that they've heard about biodiversity. And I think you yourself, if you at this moment read the newspapers, you will hear a lot around those issues. You will hear a lot about biodiversity, where before it was only climate change. The real second big issue right now is biodiversity. And when we probed the consumers a little bit more, about 80% said that they think that the companies have a moral obligation to assure that they have a positive impact on people and biodiversity. But only half of them actually are confident that the companies are doing this. So there's still work to be done here. Also, when it's interesting that the consumers, when you ask them about this, they say, the big majority says, well, it makes me feel good when I buy a product that respects people and biodiversity. And they also feel that they can have, through their purchasing behavior, a positive impact on society. And we feel, and we see it in reality around us, also with the interest in the work that we're doing, that the whole post-COVID-19 era, there will be increased attention for this, even so that the attention will even be increasing. Now, of course, this, and next slide, please, this has implications for sourcing. So for us, some of the emerging ethical sourcing issues. First one is, of course, transparency. This has been going on for some time now, but translating transparency into traceability, and that is traceability into both wild collected and cultivated herbs. And as you know, this is quite a challenge, and particularly with those supply chains that are more informally organized. So that is something that I think will stay high on the agenda for a long time. The second issue is, as I mentioned, biodiversity, and that includes the development of biodiversity action plans. There's more and more companies that are developing biodiversity action plans at supply chain level, including, for example, regenerative practices. And I think we're going to come back to this issue probably as well. There's a lot of attention for regeneration at this moment. The UN decade on restoration is starting soon. So there's a lot of attention there, and will be continuing over the next years. And then the other point that I think is gaining more and more traction as well is the well-being of the sourcing communities. So it's the farmers, the pickers, and their communities, and then particularly attention to the fair prices being paid to them for the time and the work that they're spending. Living wage, living income is becoming more and more important. Obviously, that starts at a higher level on the supply chain, but there's more and more attention for this at the sourcing communities. And because of this type of sector that we're working in, where the crops that are being used are often marginal, just generating part of the income, you're not going to create through the sourcing a living income or living wage. So there's also more and more attention on social projects, diversification projects that can help the sourcing communities to improve their well-being and welfare. And I hope that from both Diana and Gocha, we will hear some more about those particular practices in their work, because they are finally the ones that are in touch directly with the farmers and those that are doing wild collection. Thank you so much. And I think, Diana, you are speaking after me, so I'm going to give the word to you. Diana, I think you're muted.
Hello, everyone. My name is Diana Bartolić. Our company is family company Spider Group from Croatia. We have 25 years of experience in growing and processing of herbs. We are actually now a company with 170 employees, and we have all the parts from the field to the final products under the same roof. What is important that we have our own fields, 300 hectares, and all of these fields are organic cultivation, and also for the last 4 years UEBT certified. We included, besides our own fields, in this whole process of UEBT certification, also the farmers that we are working with. We are working all together with 40 farmers, and now 12 of them are included in UEBT program with 420 hectares altogether. Spider Group is not only processing but also packaging final products for many private label brands which are placed on the market all over the world. Our biggest product, what we are producing, is chamomile. Chamomile is from the beginning actually our family project. My parents founded the company and started to buy chamomile from our region where we live, to process it a little bit and to offer it to the market. From the beginning, we were dedicated to produce a product which have a good impact on the environment and on the people and the whole community. Since we are working with natural product, it was very important for us that we are also giving back something to the nature, not only using the nature. And that's why we decided to go organic first, and then later UEBT. Our farmers are small family farms, and they are placed very close to our company, actually, maybe in 200 kilometers circle around the company. And UEBT growing of chamomile is for them very important. For some of them, it's almost 80% of their yearly income. Next slide, please. Why we chose UEBT? We decided this is all actually what we live and what are our family goals. Because our business is also part of our family since I was very little. Now also my brother is working in the company, and more people from our family, our friends. Our company actually is one big family. Since all the people that work together with us are living here in this region of Croatia, we are very dedicated to produce something what is good also for the nature. We are growing products that have positive impact on environment. With organic practice and UEBT practice, we are enriching the soil. We are keeping biodiversity, which is part of our program. This is a long-term project for us. We are now 25 years doing this, and we are planning to continue forever, actually. What is good for our farmers and for the whole community? For the farmers, we provide support in the knowledge and good farming practices, and actually we help them to develop also as small farmers to become bigger and bigger. This is a good choice for us in any way, because also with this standard we are now recognized in the market and we have bigger and bigger opportunities. That's for the beginning from me. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And now we'll turn to Gocha.
Okay, thank you. It's a really great pleasure for me to be here. I'm Gocha Dzneladze, and I represent the company GeoFlower, which is located in country Georgia. Well, my country is not big. It's around 70,000 square kilometers with 4.5 million people. And out of this, like a 55% is urban population, and 70% of my country is covered by high mountain. Next slide, please. The company was founded in 2000 year, and at the beginning we were a quite small company, having like a 10 permanent workers and only 32 seasonal workers. And as of today, yeah, we keep like a 120 workers and 700 collectors. We are having a 4,000 square metric production unit in different parts of Georgia. And our main activity of the business is collection and production of different wild fruits and herbs, and which are in most cases ingredients for the herbal or fruit tea infusion, or it is used for the pharmaceutical industry. I would say most of our finished goods are exported, and let's say if 10 years ago we had like 100% conventional quality, as of today we keep more than 65% sustainable quality, and we try to increase this rate year by year. As of today, company holds following certification like ISO 22000, organic certification, FairWild, Mabagron certification. A few years ago, we got like a Georgian National Business Award as an ecological clean Georgian product. Majority of our crops, majority of our products are harvested in different parts of Georgia, and as I told you, they are wild and growing in remote places in the mountain forest. The collectors on the map, you can see these collection sites, which we have approximately 25 collection sites. And a few years ago, we started as a trial to introduce in communication sites, so-called communication center, which is the place for the collectors to have daily face-to-face contact with the company's people, to get some training, to get all useful information, internet access, and same time they can deliver their harvested certified products. A few years ago, we started organic cultivation of Camellia sinensis in high mountain region, and this is only plantation we have for this moment, and this plantation is also certified as organic. Please, next one. The company does different social projects with different communities. On the slides is given some of them. All the social projects financed either by FairWild premium amount or Mabagron premium fund or GeoFlower own investment. Within the last 5 years, we did more than 60 different social projects, and it's every year it's going up. Please, next slides. This is another projects. Thank you.
Great, thank you all so much. Rik, if you want to come back on. So now there's so many different threads we could talk about. One I wanted to follow or dig into a little bit is, Rik, how you mentioned, these botanicals, especially in the herb supply network, farmers or collectors are doing multiple crops. It's not like one big commodity. And so, Rik, I wondered if you could sketch a little bit of the picture of how sourcing for herbal tea market is kind of a unique sector. And then Diana, and then talk some about the unique challenges that poses for producing groups.
Well, what I find in this sector, what is unique in a sense is that the supply chains and the volumes are often relatively limited, and the supply chains are scattered over all around the world and not necessarily very concentrated. So in some commodities, you may have whole areas that are filled with coffee farmers, for example, and you can have programs around that. Here you will have one supply chain in one area, another supply chain in another area, and it is rather difficult to try to kind of then bring and create support programs that support the overall kind of community. So I think that's a rather big challenge. So the level of scale, the level of influence also that producers have over their supply chains is a challenge. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of informal supply chains set up still, and particularly with the wild collection. And there's often hesitation to formalize that also from the side of the collectors. So it's a rather tall order to try to go towards traceability and to kind of make sure that then, because only then you can start looking at at sustainable practices, and you can start looking at a decent income. So I think those are challenges that we have found, but I'm not sure whether or not that resonates with Diana and Gocha.
The challenges, okay, so we included farmers in this UEBT certification, which are very close to our company, and very often our agronomists are visiting them and giving them all kind of support in education, in seeds, in advices, in also sometimes even in money, of course, if it's necessary to pay something in advance. And we improved a lot of ways they dealing with cultivation and storing of herbs. We also developed a biodiversity plan because we are having in Croatia very actually small fields, and it's very hard to protect the fields from some chemicals used by neighbors, some pesticides, and then we surrounded our fields with some trees to build a natural barrier between the fields with neighbors. So we plant a lot of acacia trees, and we also we are teaching our farmers to do the same way, the same practice as we are doing. And in this way we can in some part influence in this wind drift, to stop wind drift from some neighbor fields. Also, some of our farmers are in nature protected areas, so we are trying to keep the environment, to enrich the soil, to not influence too much to the natural environments, on the birds, on the bees. So we are not using any kind of chemicals, and we are all using only organic manures, which are enriching the soil, and so we can keep it sustainable for many years. What is maybe also farmers are small farmers, and we through the years we give them a lot of education, and we influence on them to think the way we think. You know, we are open to the market. We know what is going on in other countries, some practices in cultivation, and we are bringing this to the farmers in Croatia, actually, because we are on global market, and we are often visiting some suppliers in other countries, and so we can transfer best practices to farmers in Croatia.
I want to ask you a quick follow-up, Diana. When you introduce those practices to the farmers, how are they open to it, or what have you found is most effective in?
It depends. Some farmers which are older, they are not so open to the new practices, but the second generations, these are our families. So very often the second generation is also now included in the whole cultivation program, and they are open to the new practices. Yes, they are.
And in terms of pesticides or organic, how does that unfold on a?
So in organic, we are growing chamomile, lemon balm, mallow. We are not using any kind of pesticides. We are just putting the seeds in the soil, and it's growing with the natural, with the sun and the flower and the rain. So we are not using anything. We are just enriching the soil. And for pesticides, we had big challenges. It depends on the year, but since fields are not too big, there are a lot of neighbors around which are growing different types of vegetables, maybe tobacco, and they are using some pesticides. So we had also educations for our neighbors, and sometimes we were using media such as radio shows or some open microphones to also influence on our neighbors. So the whole region around our company is very familiar with our company and with the chamomile cultivation, and this is becoming more and more important as a number of the people who are involved in this project is bigger and bigger every year.
Great, thank you. Gocha, so you're dealing with a different, mostly collectors, so I'd love to hear your perspective on the challenges that you're facing.
Yeah, we are a company engaging in the collection of different wild fruits and herbs. In most cases, our cultivation site is located in a very deep forest in mountain region of the country. And unfortunately, the living condition of the collectors there, it's not so good, let's put it this way. And unfortunately, we still have one of the biggest challenge company face, it's high migration from those remote places, because people want to try to come from mountain and to go to the big cities. Therefore, our approach is a little bit different. We think that, to make a sustainable supply, the most crucial role in this supply chain are collectors. And we have to take care, first of all, for the collectors. What does it mean for my understanding and for our philosophy? If we are not going to make happy, if we are not going to make some distress of the financial stress to the collectors, they are not going to take care about biodiversity, about ecological things, because they will try just to get as much as possible, let's say today, without thinking tomorrow, next year to come again on the same spot. Therefore, in my understanding, the crucial role in this business, it's collectors. And, to solve these problems, I think one of the important things to have fair price for them. And this is one aspect of this matter, but another aspect, it's education, knowledge. And we also, 20 years ago when I started this business, I didn't have knowledge about this matter, and even me were absolutely not known what to do in terms of sustainability supply. But then 10 years ago, when we started dealing with first Mabagro quality wild apple, our thinking also changed, and step by step, we try to give this education, this knowledge to the collectors. I mentioned in my presentation that we make kind of a trial a few years ago, making some communication centers in our collection sites. Why we did that? Because, we didn't want to have distance to collectors. We wanted to have face-to-face contact. Implementing certifications, I think it's formal site, it's one matter, but secondly, which is most important, you have to give in their language. They should understand about this matter. And I think this communication center really helped us somehow to solve these problems. And at the end, it's also quite important for me, that at the end, final customer should take care about sustainability, quality, and there should not be, let's say, pushing on sales price, all customers should understand this philosophy, and if you are not gonna to do, and if you are not pay fair price, then at the end, all this matter is gone. Therefore, we always say, in the supply chain, the crucial role has collectors. As I mentioned it, we are not involved in any cultivation process. We just started recently only Camellia Sciences, 20 hectares. And there we also try to make organic certification for those estates.
Gocha, I wanted to follow up. So from your perspective, what, often the people buying your products, they're not going to be able to visit Georgia. Or what makes a good buyer, either an ingredient supplier or the finished brand, or even what do you want a consumer in a supplement aisle to know about how to best support those collectors, at the far end?
We have to come to the point that, in my understanding, the promotion of sustainable product, it's not well known worldwide as well, especially in the developing country. If you go in my country and ask consumer, what does it mean for them, let's say, FairWild quality or fair trade quality or any sustainable quality, they doesn't know about this. First of all, consumer, because at the end, these sustainable products has to be taken by final consumer. And I think we somehow need to promote all these ideas of sustainability, supply chains. And in my understanding, to answer your question, all customers should know how it is done, how it is conducted, in which way it is done, where it is conducted. It's not just only saying that we have to take care about biodiversity, just saying, we should see reality, how we should solve this problem.
Diana, do you want to add also? Thank you, Gocha. From your perspective, what makes a good buyer? And what allows you to do the work you're trying to do?
Yes, good buyer. Okay, so we have two parts of sales department, what I would say. So we are selling bulk products to the big tea factories, and also we are packing final products for the market. It's our customers, what is important for UEBT, for sustainability, is to understand, to know what are steps to get sustainable products. So with the customers who know what we are doing, what we are promoting, they are also willing to pay fair prices. And this is easier in bulk selling products, but with final consumers, especially also in Croatia, we are also a small country, and not so, our customers in Croatia still are not familiar too much with sustainability and with all these marks, UTZ, UEBT, fair trade, and maybe they don't understand, so maybe they are not willing to pay more for the products with these standards, so we need to promote our programs.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that for you, Diana? Because in your presentation, I think you mentioned that you have various clients for which you do the private labels. So it's the Lidl, the Aldi's, these type of companies, which are not kind of necessarily known for, paying the higher prices because they are at a different market end. So how does that work? How do you work with those type of clients and still implementing ethical sourcing practices?
Some of our clients are, as I mentioned, are big tea factories, which are very much familiar with the standards, and they are paying fair prices. But such a private label brands, some of them like Lidl, Coop, they want to have a label on the box, but they don't understand actually what does it mean and what is all involved. So they are very dedicated to force us to get a certification, but with the price it's not so easy. They want very low actually prices with all the standards included. But at the end, I think the final customers who are buying these products from the shelf are the main. We need to be focused on them, because if they ask for the products with UTZ and they are willing to pay more, this is what we need actually. it is not easy actually. You know, they all want now it's a very big trend with UTZ certified products, UEBT, and customers are asking us to implement those certificates in all our herbs, not only chamomile. But this is a long-term process, not easy, and it takes maybe 1 year or so to find all the ingredients, to find the farmers who are willing to produce it. So it is slow process, and education, promotion, yes, that is what is important.
Just can I add?
Yes.
Yeah, in our case, I would say that we are not involved in the retail business. We are just a wholesaler. We sell it as a bulk. And in this business, you know, sometimes happen that, you know, you have some fixed contract with your customer, and somehow, you know, your pricing is going up, you know, and you are not gonna to sacrifice your collectors, right? You have to still pay that fair pricing. And in that sense, we are really lucky having our customer, Martin Bauer, because when such thing happens, we immediately inform our customer saying that, you know, we had some unusual things in the business, you know, let's say we got some energy cost increase or some another problems arise, you know, and we do not want to compromise collectors, let's say, their salary. And immediately within the season, we have negotiation, we are discussing this matter, and this really accepted this this excuse, you know, and then we get that price increase, which is really important, you know, in this business. It's sustainable business, because in our world, you know, you cannot fix everything 100%. You know, sometimes it happens up and down, and it's really crucial, important for this business, in my opinion.
Well, and that's a great example of how your customer is not just, it's not just about a price. It's, and this goes back, Rik, to your point at the beginning, that these botanicals, if you're doing multiple botanicals, you're not like just focusing on living income, and the wage is not going to solve or address the problem. It has to be a more community-wide approach.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. You know, having a certification, it's really big advantage to a company like we are, you know, and let's say we have FairWild certification last 7 years, and under this certification we really do a really great social projects in the different communities, you know, and this is kind of additional motivation for those people to stay there, you know. And somehow we have some embarrassing moment, you know, because we have some communities where we implement, let's say, FairWild premium amount, and we have some communities where we just make only conventional quality, you know. And those communities also need to get some support from, I mean, we can't do it under, let's say, FairWild certification, but we always take it into consideration, and we always try to make somehow in different way from company on reinvesting some money for that reason, you know.
Gocha, can you give some example of the projects that you're working on? I think there was a question in the question and answer to get more concrete examples of the project. So maybe this would be a good moment to illustrate that. So what does a project look like?
Well, we got 2 certification for the social project. This is FairWild certification and MABA-grown UTZ premium amount. There's some technical differences to spend premium amount. In case of FairWild, the amount is generated from every kg sold to the customer. And at the end, this money is accumulated on the council, collectors council account, and they are themselves deciding how to spend this money, you know. And one of the examples, you know, collectors requested, let's say, some dental treatment, you know. One council requested us to have some special wagon for the, like a living house in their field. We call it like a cow project, which is really long-term project. They buy with this money some cows, and, you know, they can over winter, you know, with this milk and milk product. Yeah, it's different. Basically, we did like a more than 60 projects, you know. Yeah, but the most important point, all this idea comes from the collectors, from this council.
Great. Sort of following on that thread, one of the questions from the audience is around living income and wages, and what you've both talked about. The question is, how do we use ethical sourcing to make progress on living income for small farmers and I'd say collectors without adding on to program costs for the private sector and their partners? I'm not sure who wants to tackle that. It's really challenging to figure out how to. It's about distribution in a way of where the money's going, and who wants to jump onto that first?
I can say one or two words on this, how we are looking at it also in our standard and with some of the supply chains that we're working on. I think we have a particular challenge here is that as I mentioned, the total contribution from the herbs that are collected to the end income is not always. It's sometimes just a part, and then the question is what is the responsibility, and to what extent can the buyers contribute to a living income? One of the things that we are doing is that we really, through the price, try to make sure that the price, so that's the starting point, that the price that is being paid covers for and values the time that is being put in at a level of, first of all, at a level of minimum wage, and then after that, a level of living wage. So the time that the farmers are putting in. And we see in a number of sectors that already trying to value the time at a minimum wage level is a challenge, and requires increases in prices, which sometimes have significant impact on the sector. But that, of course, needs to be done. And then the next step would be to raise that further. Then at least you have a proportionate contribution, but that still does not mean that your farmers or your wild collectors are having a living income or a decent income during the whole year, because they're only picking or collecting during a period of 3 months or 6 months. So it depends a little bit. I think for Diana's example, it's where you mentioned that it's most of the chamomile is generating most of the income. Maybe there it's different, but I think this is a very significant challenge for us. The starting point is to look at the individual price level, and then to see if it can be if additional projects are possible. But of course, once you start talking about the additional projects, then the additional cost come in, because the projects need to be run as well. And I think that is what the question was asking about. How do you avoid those costs? It would be interesting to also hear from both Diana and Gocha on how, to what extent in running all those projects, how much do you look at living income and contributing to that, but also how do you deal with all the additional cost of project management that come with that?
Okay, it's a really good question. In our case, as I told you, we are we are involved in the wild collection, and years ago, when we started this business, we were dealing with just only one product. Let's say it was wild apple. And the season of harvesting of wild apple was just only 3 months, And to establish a collectors network, to establish this system, it really was not easy, because you were not giving to them like a permanent work, just only 3 months, and that's all. You have to tell them, we do not have any job to do. Later on, together with our partner company, we try to expand the range of products to give to collectors much better range of the products. And nowadays we have some communities where we have harvesting season even 8 to 9 months, which really makes establishing these communities, Otherwise, just dealing with only one product, it's impossible, to establish that system. And as for the generating money, in our case, we pay to collectors on kg base. We are not paying any fixed salary to them, and it's additional motivation to those people, that we are organizing all this collection, transporting, taking them to the collection site, and within some fixed hours, they can generate really much more money than living minimum in my country, at least, you know. And you know, at the end, it's depend to the collectors how they are motivated to do that. Because you know, if you are lazy and you are sitting on the shadow under the street, then you are not gonna to earn those money which is your partner is doing there.
Great, thank you, Gocha. Diana, I'd love to hear you respond from the perspective of chamomile, where it is 80%, but also to feed in a second question, which is how to make this territory interesting for the next generation of young farmers. And I don't know if that's a challenge in Croatia, if there are plenty of younger farmers, but the two are combined, right?
Yes. In Croatia, yes. Also, like in Georgia, young people intend to live in cities, not in small places, in villages. But besides, so chamomile is you put the seeds in the soil in the autumn, and you are having harvest in April or May. So you have a few months more to put something else in the same field. So you can combine it with hemp, for example, or with pumpkin. And this is also our practice. So we are using the same field for 2 cultures in 1 year. Also, our farmers are having some other fields, maybe also growing vegetables. It's not only chamomile. What important is for them that they are to pay them fair prices, so they can continue to work years and years after. And we are most of our farmers are together with us more than 10 years, so it is sustainable for us and for them.
Okay, we're coming to the end. There's a question that I wanted to make sure to have a chance for Rik. How you would, because this is often where companies are coming, end buyers, how would you advise them to get involved in landscape level biodiversity challenges when they might only be buying a relatively small amount of one crop of many from the farmers and perhaps not from their immediate neighbors?
Yeah. No, indeed, this is a very interesting question. That is also what I mentioned in the beginning. Again, the diversity of the supply chains, and the fact that you may have relatively small farmers, a small group of farmers involved. What we have done at UEBT is we have developed what we call kind of the approach of the biodiversity action plans, which is really looking at what can you do at the level of your farm and the farm practices, but also about what can you do in as a company, what can you contribute to biodiversity conservation, regeneration in the surrounding areas. And that is then looking at what is already happening and how to contribute to that. And that contribution might be through collaboration with local NGOs or local governments. I think that there is a more and more appetite and interest from NGOs to work with private sector and together in addressing some of those things. And so, but it needs to be done in a structured way. So that is why we have the biodiversity action plan approach that looks at and the fields and the surrounding areas, map what is in there, and then you find very often that there are initiatives that for which there's opportunities for collaboration, and that can be with, as I said, with the national parks. But it's, I mean, I think Diana, Gocha, you have biodiversity action plans in place, or at least measures. I don't know if that works for you like that as well. I don't know. There's 6 more minutes. Maybe you can actually give some practical feedback on how it works in the field for you.
Diana, do you want to respond?
So yes, our biodiversity plan it's mixed between UEBT and organic cultivation, because actually it is in some points very similar. So we are enriching this during our biodiversity plan. We are trying to change the culture in one field. So we are rotating the cultures every year to enrich the soil. Then we are putting trees around the fields to keep biodiversity, and also these trees, acacia trees that we are growing, are very good for bees, for honey. Then also we are organic cultivation is enriching the soil by using organic manure. I didn't mention at the beginning, but we also have at our farm 200 hectares. We have some special type of cattle, cows, which are protected by the law because they are very old species of cows in Croatia, and we are using their manure also for the soil. So this is the whole cyclus is closed, you know, from the field to enriching the soil, to grow, and to keeping back to the nature, to the soil, what it needs.
Yeah, in our company perspective, I would say that for every product, before we start harvesting, we have some kind of planning, pre-planning works to be done. This is first of all resource assessment of the place where we are going to harvest this material. We are making management plan. We are doing, we're getting some official certification that those places never been applied with any kind of chemicals. We do have biodiversity plan for every single products we are dealing with them. And it's different product by product. In some cases, I can give you some example of nettle leaves, which we are collecting in 2,500 meter elevation. We have a system of harvesting only top leaves, and we get within the season 3-4 harvesting time, you know, and at the end of the season it just left as it is, and next year you get again new crops from those places. So to answer your question, yeah, we deal with product by product with different approach.
That's great. I have one final question, mostly for Diana and Gocha. So all of this work requires a tremendous amount of time and investment of time and resources, and I wanted to know why personally it's important to you to not just go for the cheapest thing, to invest in the community in this way.
Okay, if I can reply first, for us, as we are a family company and we live here in this region, and all of our employees live here. We don't want to have I don't know, polluted environment with some chemicals. We don't want to live in this kind of environment. We want to keep it as for our children also, to have an environment which is free of pesticides, with a healthy environment actually, and with good nature around us. So this is important for me, as from the beginning you said customers have this feel good. This is also for us very important, to feel good, to do something good, you know. It's not only the business and the money, it's also to feel good at the end of the day. For the next generation, to have, you know, to live good nature in a good shape for the next generation.
Yeah, let's put it this way. My country, it's not rich country, you know. We do not have any kind of big resources of oil or some another big financial possibilities. But my country is rich of really brilliant nature, you know. My country, it's like a 70% of mountain, and we have a really lot of possibilities to deal with this rich environment. And years ago, when 20 years ago, when with my partners decided to go this business, it was one of the reason for that. And we always have in our mind some kind of strategic plan for next 3-5 years, you know. And presently we have a big ambition, you know, let's say within next 10 years to become company with 0 CO2 emission. It's a really big ambition, but we already started implementing this project, and you know, we started introducing like a natural drying facility, some solar panels, and all this stuff. This year we plan to make some kind of organic recycling facilities, because you know, within the year we get really a lot of wastes, and we want to recycle them and to use in our own purpose, in our tea cultivation, tea fields, not rather than using any chemicals or some other bad stuff.
That's great. Thank you both very much. Rik, do you want to add anything?
No.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the exchange. And there's so much to be discussed and so much to be learned and so many facets to all of this. We of course touched upon all of these issues very briefly, and in reality, each in the chat to talk about soil health management, for example, that can be a whole webinar on itself. So I'm sorry if we didn't pay enough attention to some of the important issues that need to be considered when we talk about ethical sourcing.
Thank you all so much for your time. Thank you all participants for joining in. When we share the link to the recording, we'll also include links to UEBT and their biodiversity programming and their standard, as well as FairWild and the resource management plans. There's tons of really valuable resources on both of those websites. Thank you again so much for joining today.
Thank you. It has been a pleasure for me.
Thank you so much.
It was a great pleasure.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.